video, we are going to admittedly talk about something that maybe not everybody is going to be interested in. It's going to describe how the menuing system works. And for those of you who like to tinker and go under the hood and maybe understand a bit more about the internals of a system, then this video is for you. It is kind of helpful to know what happens when you click on these buttons and what is going on behind the scenes. So we're going to talk about that now. Let's start with the first macro. Seems like a good place to start. Actions in combat. Now, when we click this, we already know, we knew from the last video, that we see all the macros that we have here in the tooltip. So it does that. But how does it do that? How does it know to display those individual choices? Well, let's right click and go edit and see what's actually going on behind the scenes here. And we see this panel open up with one line of code here. Okay, now don't panic. I know some of you are not programmers, but this isn't actually that hard to understand. You know what a macro is. The line of code starts with that keyword, starts with a square bracket, which lets us know that we are beginning a line of map tool script code. And this means we want to run a macro. Seems pretty straightforward so far. And bracket, and in these quotes here, in the first set of double quotes, we have a specifier with respect to which macro that we are going to run. Run power is the nexus. It is the foundation of the user interface. It is what controls the context sensitivity and gives us a menu, all kinds of great things. And we see here it is at live macro police box, which is the blue token that we talked about in the introduction video. That runs everything. So that's that. And we see that it doesn't take any extra information, which is the second set of quotes here. Now, what run power does is it does two things. It looks at, in the details tab here, it looks at the group, which is the second field here, and the label. It ignores all this HTML stuff here because that picture that you saw at the front of the button, that's just for decoration, and that's what displays it, this code here for the HTML. But here's the actual name, Actions in Combat. So it looks at these two things, and it actually looks at the token called live macro police box. It looks at this and it says, well, okay, if I see that there must be a token on this map called live macro police box. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to take a look at that. And I'm going to look for something called actions in combat. Let's do that right now because that's what the macro is doing. We'll hit cancel there. We will actually click on the MPB because that is live macro police box. This is where the actions in combat menu is coming. So what it's going to do is it's going to go down through the groups. It's going to start reading and it's going to say, aha, I have found a group that is on my label. That's the same as my label, the button label, actions in combat. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read the titles of all of these macros here. They're called labels, the titles. So it's going to read, choose basic attack, melee basic, manual attack, etc. But we know that there are more than 5 options in that menu. Where are the rest coming from? Well, they are all context sensitive, so they only apply in certain situations. So we know that those are coming up. So what we want to do is go to context sensitive, that group, and we see all of these different macros here. And notice they are color coded. The fuchsia color of the actions in combat menu are represented in the constituent macros here. So run is conditional. For example, if you are immobilized, you can't run. So you're not going to get that in the menu. But we did get that in the menu. Why? Because we're not immobilized or restrained or stuff like that. So there's the context sensitivity. Hopefully you can appreciate that. And you can do other things like aid another and aid attack. So that's how that works. And we can actually go back and we can see The same thing in other macros, just choose one at random. Tactical, for example. Edit, same thing. Exact same line of code. But if we go to details, we do see macro police box there because that's also a macro police box menu, but a different label, tactical. So it's going to go to the tactical group on the MPB and read those macro labels and form a menu for you. Now, if we go down, we see a different group, Vanny. What did we learn about the group specifier in the settings for a macro? We learned that there must be a live colon Vanny on this map. And there it is, right there, with the green circle around it, that version of the two tokens. And what's going to happen if we click at will, it's going to read Lightning Strike and Stormwalk because it's found a group on live colon Vanny which has the labels it's looking for, and it's going to make a menu for you and allow you to run those macros. So that's how the menuing system works. Now we get to a little bit of a sticky part of the video. Some of my players, not many, say, you know what, Starman, I actually don't like the way some of these are organized. Can I move them around? The answer is yes. So let's say we have the Storm Soul class feature right here, and that player says, I don't think it's really intuitive to have it there. I think it should be in the at will group because, hey, I can run it anytime I want because it's not a black color or a maroon color. So what we can do to accommodate that request is we can edit. Remember how we talked about the group? Right now it's class features free no. We can actually say at dash will and say okay there. Watch what happens. It moves. So will it run there? Because it was running just fine in class features free no, and that is what I recommend. As the framework designer, there's a reason why it's in class features free no, so it can be run as a free action or as a no action. But this is relatively harmless. I don't recommend it, but it's not going to break anything per se. So what we can do is click on Vanny and see if that actually works. We will now click on at will. Will it appear? It hasn't updated the tooltip. Remember how I explained that's only going to happen in certain refresh situations. So we'll click on at will and see if it's there. There it is. Storm Soul class feature. And we can run it. And it will appear in the chat window. There we go. So he gets all kinds of cool stuff because of that. Some defense bonuses to all his defenses. So very cool there. So if we go back to live colon Vanny, we can see that he has other macros here too. And you can hover over these and see that tooltip there that comes up. The first block is what you're really interested in, the attack and the effect there. I know that's kind of hard to read, but that's a quick and dirty way of knowing what your powers do without actually having Character Builder open or it printed out to a PDF or what have you. So very handy there if you only want to deal with MapTool and you don't want any other programs on your screen. Now, let's try opening Whirlwind, for example, and say edit. We can see in the details here that it is a maroon color. This has special meaning to the menuing system. What's going to happen when it runs Whirlwind is it's going to register what's called a used effect. So it's going to register Whirlwind-ABOSS used to mark it used when you run this power. So that's why if you try clicking on encounter again, it's going to say no macros found because this is the only one under the encounter. So it'll run it right away under the encounter button and it will run it and register that used effect. So that's how that works for expendable powers, and you can get them back. We'll talk about that more in the power management video, but we'll cancel that guy. And that's pretty much it. That represents the architecture behind the scenes of the menuing system. Now, actually describing how all these macros actually work, that is beyond the scope of this particular stage of learning the framework. If you're a programmer, then by all means, go down to the programmer's reference section of the website, and that will teach you how to do programming. Or you can actually ask me a question on the rptools.net forum site, which we will talk about as well. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that and you understand how it works behind the scenes now. Thanks for watching.